This time, the vote was close, but you guys pulled it through with Ghost Rider right at the last minute. But since Earth's Mightiest held first place for so long, and the poll was still so close, I'm gonna do both. Earth's Mightiest will be up next week, but right now it's time for the season pitch, Spirits of Vengeance. Real quick, our rules here are simple. I don't do exact stats or numbers since they will change during nerfs and buffs and whatnot. This is all for fun, and of course these aren't predictions nor is it a wish list, but just a way to express some creativity, which is why I insist you guys go into the comments and give me your ideas after the video. That being said, unlike the past Rivals videos, we aren't going to be doing 3 heroes. No, instead we'll be covering 2, a map concept and a battle pass worth of skins. Starting off, however, we do have our first hero here, a new duelist for the ever-growing roster, the stunt driver from hell, Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider.
What's the suspect's location?
What? The suspect is going up!
Johnny Blaze made a deal with the devil. Well, Mephisto, and came out bonded with a spirit of vengeance, which transformed him into a flaming skeleton in leather on a motorbike, who eats sins and kills bad guys. For how I wanted him to play, I knew we had to have that feeling of wildly swinging a chain around and just hitting everyone. I swear in every depiction, he's just a walking AoE. I also wanted something to incorporate his whole eating sin shtick. And then finally, I needed a mechanic to include his iconic hell cycle. So without further ado, we'll start with his attacks. His first attack, his primary, is Mystic Chain. This allows him to conjure his iconic demonic flaming chain, which he can swing around. I'd imagine it having something like a 120-degree radius as he just swings it wildly in front of him, sort of hitting a cone right to left, then left to right. It'd be massive and quite far-reaching, so it can hit multiple targets. It wouldn't deal insane damage or anything, but obviously because of how far it hits, it's very easy to land those hits. And then this is followed up by an alternate fire he can switch to by pressing the switch primary button, kind of like how Black Widow does it, or Punisher, where he pulls out the Hellfire Shotgun, since Johnny often carries this on his side as well. The Hellfire Shotgun does less damage than Punisher's shotgun per se, but it does ignite enemies, dealing dot damage for a short period of time. Following this, we move on to his actual kit, the things that make Ghost Rider Ghost Rider, and those are his abilities. Starting off with Chain Burst. For those of you who don't know, Johnny doesn't actually need to have a chain on him to make his mystic chains. He can just generate them, and that's exactly what this ability is. Johnny opens up and fires chains out in all directions, hitting all enemies within a short radius of him, and enemies that are hit by these chains are then pulled in close to him. I can imagine this kind of being a little bit of a difficult thing to use at low level, because the chains would be projectiles, and so they actually have to physically hit enemies. But as you practice more with him and play more with him, you can figure out what angles they emerge from the body, and figure out where and when they will hit an enemy, pulling them in and getting those fights off. The chain burst itself wouldn't deal high damage, but the idea is you can use it when someone's quickly trying to run away to bring them back for one last hit sort of thing. But of course, what would Johnny be without his iconic motorbike, the Hell Cycle? And that's what his next ability is. When you activate this, it would work much like Punisher's turret, where for a couple seconds, he does a little animation where he summons the bike and then mounts it. Once you are mounted on the Hell Cycle, you have a far wider turn radius, so it's a bit harder to make it around corners, but you also move incredibly fast, way faster than any other character normally would in the game. In addition, you gain 2 new effects that occur. While riding the bike, you leave behind a trail of fire. Enemies who walk through this fire take damage, as long as they're stood in the flames, and while on the bike, your chain has a 360-degree radius, kind of mimicking that Marvel vs. Capcom move where he rides across the map and swings his chain about. I just think it's a really fun image to picture on the map as you're like, oh god no, the Ghost Rider's coming towards us. Now, he'd only be allowed to sit on the bike for a short period of time, and then the bike would despawn, it would go on cooldown as a way to sort of balance it. But I just think you can't have the character without giving him easy access to his bike. That being said, he does have one last main ability, and that's Hellfire. Hellfire allows Johnny to summon a wall of flame in front of him. I could see him creating a fireball and throwing it down where the wall appears, or just straight up breathing the flames out. Or if you want a bit of a Nicolas Cage reference, you could have him piss it out too. The idea here is if enemies walk through the wall, they're damaged, and they also can't see through it. So it acts as a bit of an obscuring thing, and, you know, they need to risk getting hurt in order to push on through it, but all projectiles and all healing still moves through the wall perfectly fine. The other thing is if you're dealt damage by the wall, you are ignited the same way the Hellfire shotgun does, so you will then continue to take light dot damage for a short period of time. But the real piece to what makes Ghost Rider's kit Ghost Rider, in my opinion, is his main passive, Sin Eater. For those of you who don't know, Ghost Rider's whole shtick is he can sense evil within someone and then consumes it. And that's exactly what this passive does. You see, all characters on the map have a sin level, which is determined by a percentage, 25, 50, 75, or 100, or 0. And it goes up by 25% every time they KO one of Ghost Rider's allies. When Ghost Rider looks at an enemy, he can see an aura on their chest, which will be a certain colour, yellow, orange, red, or blue if it's 100%, and then when he KOs them, he will consume all of their sin, reducing them down to a 0% sin, and increasing his little meter, which would be either on the bottom right of his screen, or it would be under his reticle, I don't know specifically, and it would increase that to 100%, which gives him all of the bonuses that come with consuming sin. So visually, you'd be able to tell Johnny has currently consumed sin because his head would burn brighter and his chain would be lit on fire. Mechanically, this just increases all of his damage output. So his Mystic Chain, his Shotgun, his Chain Burst, and his Hellfire all deal a little bit more damage. Now, while he has sin consumed, he will slowly drain that sin consumed meter down until it hits 0%. Then we have his next passive ability, that being Damnation Regeneration. See, when Johnny KOs an enemy, he regenerates a small amount of health. This would have a flatter rate for when he's at 0% sin on his meter, and then when he consumes sin and uses this ability, he gains a bit more health increased by how much sin percent he has, up to increasing double the amount of health he normally would if he has 100% sin when he uses Damnation Regeneration. Of course, regaining your health after killing people, which then boosts your damage output to take out more people, chain bursting enemies who are trying to run away from you, and then riding the hell cycle to chase after anyone on the far end of the map, all while laying hellfire walls to keep your teammates safe from the enemies, is eventually going to build up ults. And the Ghost Rider has one of the most iconic potential ults I think we can ever picture from comic books, that being his main weapon when facing off against the true forces of evil, the Penance Stare. When activating this, it works much like Moon Knight does, where you see a radius of where it's going to trigger first, and you can obviously cancel it while that happens. While you're seeing this radius, Ghost Rider's eyes will glow as though they're even on more fire, and that radius is in the shape of a cone coming out of Ghost Rider. When activated, all enemies within that cone take a flat chunk of damage, and then also take an additional amount of damage based on their current sin level. If an enemy is at 100% sin level, it's almost guaranteed gonna basically just wipe them off the board, unless they are particularly strong health bar like, say, Groot. And so what you want to do is chip away at the damage on certain characters, figure out who has the highest sin levels, and then sort of line up to get as many kills as possible. The only downside to Penance Stare being that Ghost Rider doesn't consume their sin when he kills them with it, since he's using it to damage them. Marvel Rivals also has this really cool feature called Team-Ups, and I think it has so much potential in the game with interacting with people, and I just really love it. So for Johnny, I came up with two in particular. The first one is Judgment, and we're not going to cover that right now. Instead, we'll cover it when we get to the second hero of the video. But the other team-up is Hellish Royalty, which he has with Hela and Magic. What this does is it gives Magic's ability Onward Incursion, which is where she dashes forwards and then uppercuts, a little trail of flame it leaves behind. This basically covers her back when she dashes in. It also just makes difficult terrain when she's really going into a team fight as well. Overall, I think it doesn't add loads, but it does add something that can be used and is quite beneficial to the whole team. As for the Narstrong Crowstorm effect it gives to Hela, that is when she shoots people and they get KO'd, it creates that raven that explodes. It basically means that raven leaves behind a flaming area on the ground that enemies can walk in and then take dot damage from. Hers will come up probably far less than Magic's in usability and actual benefit, but it's still something nice. It means that when Hela pops off on people who are in a team area and in a team group, she has some benefit, not just when they're separated. Hela doesn't necessarily need the buff, and it's nothing particularly broken, so I don't see an issue with it. I just felt that it was really nice to give Ghost Rider a team up with the other two royal figures in Hell. Given Johnny did become the king of Hell for a little while, Hela is the goddess of Hell, and Magic is the queen of Limbo, which in the Marvel Universe is basically just Hell. So there we have it, an all-round badass build for the Duelist Demon King himself. Of course, however, these heroes seem to release with a store skin ready for purchase, and I think it's only right that we show Danny Ketch some love. Now, I know he really deserves his own spot as a Ghost Rider, and he's many of yours favourites. But there's a ton of Ghost Riders, so I think a skin for Johnny is only fair since the two of them look and fight in such similar ways, and I really want to give that second spot to a different rider. Now that being said, I think with the skin we can distinguish the two a little bit. Maybe give Danny the blue flames that we've seen in the comic books he's had in the past. But you don't have to, you can just give Danny his classic look and make him look fairly similar to Johnny. It doesn't fully matter. Moving on to the season map, I think it's a hard one, but honestly, Limbo just seems to be the best call for it. Imagine a push map, where maybe we start in a great circus tent. There's some ramps across the area, maybe there's an achievement to ride the Hell Cycle, and then you push the payload through a portal, where you take some turns in the hellish landscape before arriving at Mephisto's throne. The payload could be some demonic beast carrying a contract of some sort, maybe even one for Johnny's soul or something. This would tie into Hela and Magic's lore since they both reside within Limbo as well. I just think it's a really cool thing, and fans love Mephisto, so to make a little character model who sits on that throne and watches the players as they move through could be really cool, especially since I do think he's a little bit too powerful to be on the roster, or at least to be on the roster right now, right? As for the seasonal skins, we're going to have 5, and at the top of the pass is a Hulk skin. One I think many of you would appreciate, Demon Hulk. Demon Hulk isn't actually a demon, but is the evil mind within the Hulk personalities that reside inside Bruce's head, and originally showed up for one lesser known storyline. However, after Immortal Hulk, he became far more well known since he is Immortal Hulk. I'd take an Immortal Hulk base skin with a Demon Hulk as the ult design, or just a straight up Demon Hulk design for the base skin, and then an even more monstrous Demon Hulk design for the ult. Honestly, either or would be awesome, and a bit of Immortal Hulk appreciation could be bloody sick. Following that in the pass would be the free skin. Now, the way Marvel Rivals has handled free skin so far seems to be mainly a recolor with some slight detailing changes, so in this case I'd go with Magic. Specifically, a recolor or redesign matching her New Mutants color scheme. Maybe the minor redesign elements could be the logo changing to match the comic one a bit more. And then as we move on to our next skin, we have to remember that Ghost Rider is a title many have held, and that includes other heroes, such as the Ghost Panther. I know we have a few Black Panther skins right now, but I really do think this one's super cool, especially if the ult changed Basque to be the Hell Panther this rider has at his side. Of course, with these 3 awesome skins, we need our top 2, the ones that will draw everyone in, and the first of those has to be Ghost Spider. Whilst not a Ghost Rider, he is a Spider-Man with a flaming skull and ghost in the name. This dark and twisted version of Spider-Man is just a cool design, and I'd love to see NetEase's art team develop it into a rival style. Could you imagine sitting as support and then this beast appears behind you and launches you into the air? It'd be horrifying. Plus, he's clearly a popular skin since he got so much love in the Spider-Man Insomniac games. But I did save the best for last, and that should be a Punisher skin, since Frank Castle has had arguably one of the coolest Ghost Rider fits Marvel has ever designed, and that is Cosmic Ghost Rider. A man on a mission to punish Thanos by killing him as a baby, this dude's comics was so damn cool, and I love every aspect of him. I reckon this would be on so many people's Punishers almost instantly. Now for what you've all been waiting for, the second hero of our video, and yes, it's another Ghost Rider, the skeleton with a heart, Robbie Reyes.
It's time to pay for your sins.
Robbie Reyes was the most recent permanent Ghost Rider, and in many ways, just as iconic as Johnny, so I had to put him in the video. Honestly, with how many riders there's been, I didn't think it would be right to have a Spirit of Vengeance season and not fill all the slots with different ones. Robbie is my favourite rider, and I really think he can play differently to Johnny. For example, in this video, he's a Vanguard, and I know some of you guys might think he's a bit of a skinny guy and doesn't fit the classic build of a Vanguard, but look at this fan art that's been going around the internet for a few weeks now, and tell me that doesn't look like a Vanguard. As for how I wanted him to play, I felt leaning into his chain blades and hooks, and then finding a way to incorporate his Hell Charges somehow in a grandiose way could be awesome. The other thing that really inspired me with him was how the Midnight Suns game incorporated his Hellmouth portal powers from the comics. So in the end, I went for a ground-controlled danger zone kind of tank. Think sort of how Penny acts, but then with the ability to pull in enemies and abuse his terrain manipulation. Starting off with his attacks, we have Hell Chain. This is a basic chain attack where he swings it forward and hits an enemy. Unlike Johnny's, he doesn't swing it in a wide radius, it's more of a swing it forwards to attack kind of thing, slashing down at enemies. The most amount of people you could probably hit would be like 2. And that would be his only basic attack, but he is a character who's really built up by his abilities and what he can do on the battlefield with his health. Starting off, we have Fire Stream, his main sort of offensive attack. That allows him to breathe fire in a line forwards, and any enemy hit by it are ignited and start taking dot damage for a short period of time. It's just a good way to cover an area when you have multiple people in front of you, and just gets a little bit of damage out there, then he can start swinging his chain. The other thing is, I can imagine you can use Fire Stream while using your basic attack and it wouldn't cancel the animation, since he's just breathing fire out of his mouth. After that, we get Scorched Earth. This is the real bread and butter of his kit. Scorched Earth allows him to create a radius around himself into burning hellscape. All enemies who stand on Scorched Earth receive dot damage, and whilst inside it, Robbie slowly generates shield, much like how Penny does in her webbed areas. However, unlike Penny, Scorched Earth doesn't have an anchor for enemies to shoot to get rid of it. No, instead, Scorched Earth immediately despawns when nobody is stood inside it. What this means is Robbie can place it, and as long as someone's in that area, Scorched Earth will last, dealing constant dot damage to enemies inside, and constantly generating Robbie shield whilst he's inside of it. Now, when you get a KO inside of Scorched Earth, or anyone does, as long as an enemy is on Scorched Earth and is KO'd, Robbie's ability Hellmouth comes off cooldown. Now, this cooldown does not have a timer. It is exclusively for when he gets a KO inside Scorched Earth, and it allows him to transform a Scorched Earth on the map that he currently has into a Hellmouth. He looks at it, presses the button, and then the Scorched Earth shines a bright yellow before turning into a Hellmouth. A Hellmouth being a pit that if someone falls in, they die. This isn't in of itself too game changing, I don't think. The amount of characters who are able to get to safety after Jeff throws them on a map, I definitely think Hellmouth wouldn't be game breaking per se, but it does give him the ability to make an entire area unpassable for certain characters, and it gives him the ability to let his team start throwing people off cliffs basically. Now, of course, Hellmouth will work brilliantly alongside Robbie's final main ability, Hell Hook. He launches his chain at an enemy and then launches himself at them. If he does this, it does apply a tiny bit of knockback, not massive. The main idea here is it closes distance, not creates it. But he can use this to basically pull himself over to enemies and attack them. But more importantly, if you are inside Scorched Earth, you instead pull enemies to you. So if he's in a Scorched Earth, he can use his ability and it will pull an enemy into the Scorched Earth for him, ensuring there are now 2 people in that, and it helps him fight them. A little thing I forgot to mention when I covered Scorched Earth as well is I imagine either by his reticle or down on the bottom right of the screen by where Scorched Earth's cooldowner is, there'll be a little marker telling Robbie how many people are currently inside his Scorched Earths. Kind of like how Moon Knight has an ability thing that tells him how many unks he currently has, and stuff like that. It just means he can keep track of how many people are currently inside it. And then we move on to his passive. Now, Robbie only has one passive, and that's Soul Reaper. KOing an enemy resets the cooldown of Hellhook. That's the basic idea of it. It's nothing too special. The general idea here is I also wanted him to have something to do with feeding off the sin he consumes when he KOs people. But unlike Johnny, I didn't want to give him the healing since he already gets the shield generation from Scorched Earth. As you reset your hook cooldowns, pulling them into Scorched Earth and KOing enemies, placing Hellmouths to make areas unpassable, and breathing fire out to get that constant dot damage, you are going to mitigate damage and build up that ult. That ult being Hellcharger. Now this is Robbie's main power in the comic books. All the Ghost Riders have a ride, and Johnny's is this really cool dodge charger that has been demonified. And just again, like with the Hellmouths that I took a lot of inspiration from Midnight Suns, I kind of took inspiration from that game again with the Hellcharger. You see, the way this works is when he readies it, he will summon the Hellcharger in front of him and fire it in a straight line. A little bit like Black Panther's ult. However, instead of it just doing one attack there, the Hellcharger will drive in a straight line, passing over any drops or holes, so it stays at the same height. So if there's a stair set going down like on Ixgard, it's just going to fly over that. And it will also fly through any breakable walls until it hits a solid wall or it's gone a certain preset amount of distance where it will then despawn. Any enemies hit by the Hellcharger while it flies forwards take a high chunk of damage, and they are pushed back for a certain duration of the Hellcharger's journey. If the Hellcharger goes through a wall, they don't go through the wall, they just smash into it. I think this is a really cool sort of mechanic. You could use the Hellcharger to push people into Hellmouths. You could also just use the Hellcharger to deal a bunch of damage in a corridor or a narrow area where the enemy team can't really get out of the way. I think it's a really fun way to incorporate his awesome demonic ride. But we now have his team-ups. Now, just like Johnny, he has Judgment, but I can actually tell you what it does now. So this is a team-up with both the Ghost Riders and Punisher, and it gives Robbie and Punisher the buff, making Johnny yet again the anchor. So if any of you guys have any team abilities that would give Johnny something new to do, please let me know down below. And this basically lights the Hell Chain and Deliverance on fire. Deliverance being Punisher's shotgun, the Hell Chain being Robbie's only basic attack. What this means is the Hell Chain and Deliverance both now add on a little bit of dot damage after you land a hit with them. Robbie's other team ability is Demonic Hook, which is with Winter Soldier. What this means is Bionic Hook, which is Winter Soldier's hook ability, now requires no charge up time as long as Winter Soldier is stood inside of Scorched Earth. So if he stands side by side with Robbie, he can hook enemies and pull them into the Scorched Earth without having to charge it up first. He can just tap the button and throw the hook out at full power. And with that, we have two unique but still identifiably Ghost riders. And I want to thank you all so much for sticking through. Oh, and if you are curious, the skin I'd put in the store for Robbie would be Ghost Rider 1000 BC, or was it 10,000 BC? The caveman Ghost Rider, it doesn't matter. It's really cool. I'd replace the Hellcharger with the mammoth that he rides for the ult, and then just have those cool ass bone chains as his weapons. I think so many people would want that skin. It's such a cool Ghost Rider design. And so for the end of video shout out, I just had to make it Urbanator. They not only came up with an awesome strategist idea for Rescue, but then a brilliant Vanguard design for War Machine. I just feel I'd be remiss if I didn't appreciate the time, effort, and dedication put into their ideas. The shoutouts at the end of these videos aren't a complexity challenge or a details challenge, but I just felt the care and attention to the source material and to the gameplay ideas in these concepts were so brilliant. So thanks for putting them out there, and thanks to everyone else who put a pitch or an idea in the comments. I read them all, and so many of them are so damn brilliant. But alongside with another season video next week on Earth's Mightiest Heroes, we're also going to have our first DC Rivals video. So be sure to vote on what to call that series on the channel page. And if you like this video, not only give it a thumbs up, but check out the playlist with all our other Marvel Rivals pitches. Thank you guys so much. We're so close to that 1,000 sub goal, and I can't believe we're making it there so quickly. I'll see you guys next time.